My idea for success for my sons has more to do with who they are inside than what they accomplish for people to see, the spectacle of success. Right. So it's important to me that my sons see me being happy with the small things that they don't that they see us achieving or they see us acquiring stuff, right? But that stuff isn't ever worshipped in front of them, right? The example that you set also sets their expectation for whatever success is. So in my house, success is doing what you love. Success is being happy. Success is liking yourself. It's loving yourself.
What's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Village podcast, the official home for proud fathers and mentors. We appreciate you locking in with us. What's going on, Kev? How you feeling today?
And I'm good, brother. Blessed and highly favored.
Good. Yeah, we're gonna jump right into this topic of leadership and leading by example as a father. So we'll cover setting expectations, which is a big one. But most importantly, how are we setting the example? Where are we setting the bar? Or are we asking too much of our children when it comes to meeting expectations that we set forth for them? But I know for myself, it took a while just becoming a man and to find your own personal purpose. And with that, you ask yourself a lot of questions. You go through a lot of things personally. And I think that journey lasts nearly a lifetime. You figure things about yourself on and on, like that cycle never ends. And when it comes to obviously having children, having a family, there's more people in your life that expect a lot more out of you and that require a lot of you. So with that, being a responsible parent, responsible father, you want to instill in them some of the things that you learn. You don't want them to take the same paths, especially if those are dark alleys that you've been down and experienced some hardship. You want to alleviate them from having to take those same steps, those same paths. So let's start with leading by example. What are some of the key things that you make sure you do day in and day out that kind of rectify you setting that tone for your family?
For me, I got a 3-year-old and I got a 5-year-old. So the the goal for me is always to be the type of man that I would hope for my son to be the type of man that he can idolize appropriately, um, and be one of those heroic figures for him, but also be deserving of that honor. With that said, the person that he becomes is very reflective of what I show him, and I know that. So, one of the keys for me is to always show him a man acting within his responsibilities, right? So, he sees me being obligated, he sees me being responsible, he sees me being held responsible. But on a day to day basis, I make sure that he sees me providing, he sees me working, he sees me, not just hustling, but building, right? And I think that that's the key. Like we see hustling, but hustling sometimes can take a mind of its own, and it doesn't necessarily reflect building something. A lot of people are hustling, but we shouldn't mistake movement for progress, right? And so when he sees me building and he sees me layering my efforts in a very, very passionate but purposeful, appointed way, it gives him an opportunity to witness how things should be done and how to prioritize the things that we are responsible for. And so for me, leading by example, through the eyes of a 5-year-old, it looks like daddy making sure that he brings me to bed on time, daddy making sure that I eat on the dot of every time it's my, it's my time to eat.
Mhm.
making sure that daddy's nice to mommy, making sure that daddy's taking care of Riley, making sure that daddy plays with me, even if I see he's busy and I ask him, like, right now he doesn't know what any of this is, but in time he'll understand that it was me handling my responsibilities. When he's old enough to be responsible for something, anything at all, he'll start to realize that I've always been responsible around him. And there are lessons that we're trying to put in place now that he won't get for many years, but it will be second nature to him because it's the only reality he's been shown. It's
Right.
the only reality he's been exposed to. As fathers, we have to set the tone, even when we don't believe a child is watching. They're always watching. They're always learning. They're always absorbing. And so we want to make sure what they absorb from us is masculinity, is real manhood. And so that's always my personal goal, is to make sure that I'm building in front of him. He sees me being passionate. He sees me having purpose, right? He sees me operating in my purpose, right? And he understands
Mhm.
that that's a thing. And so when I one day ask him to do something that's inconvenient but very important, he's always seen me do the inconvenient but very important. He sees me helping people and doing good deeds and inconveniencing myself for his mom, for him, for his little brother. So it won't sound like some shit that he's never seen before or never witnessed from me, right? We've all
Mhm.
you've had a job before,
Mhm.
or maybe your boss worked as hard as he would have you work. Those are the best bosses to work for, because
Right.
you don't mind putting your all into your job when you know your boss is putting his all into the job,
Exactly.
right? When he's got your back as a leader, but he's leading by example. It's so
Yeah.
much easier to follow a good leader, right? And so I just try to make sure that that's where it starts with me, is being a good leader and leading by example in those ways. How about
Mhm.
you?
Yeah. Same. Same. Like the point you made with the supervisors, bosses, when that energy and that effort is reciprocated, it feels good. It feels great. Like you're a
Yeah.
part of a team. It's not really a much of a hierarchy system, or it's actually not. It doesn't go over that way as far as how you understand it. It's like, hey, we all have a common goal and we're working toward that together. Um, but yeah, and I think when it comes to helping them understand responsibility, they may not get it, they may not understand it right away, it may not click, because when you and I were growing up, or anyone can probably attest to it, some things didn't make sense until later on in life.
Nah.
It didn't go over, and you were just like, why am I doing this? Doesn't make sense, or I can do this later, or so. But like you said, just knowing that you have watchful eyes. They're going to pay attention to your every move, what you're saying, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, the way you dress. Um, Everything from top to bottom is being recorded. So you have to act in that way. You can't,
That's
like, it's
that's
tough.
important.
Yeah, it's like I can't. It's like you can't really let your foot off the gas. I mean, and at the same time, you don't want to confuse it with trying to maintain perfection.
Right.
As long as a lot of things are explained when they're at the age to ask certain questions, obviously you don't want to overcomplicate answers. uh Give it to them a way that they can understand, and they can uh easily take with them and be able to learn from. But yeah, but I think, with all that being said, it helps you become a better man at the same time.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're being watched, you're going to be critiqued, or you don't want to answer to something that you're doing wrong. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like it kind of keeps you in check. It keeps it's that integrity check, pretty much. And by that happening, it's like you want to do the right thing as often as you're able to, and as much as you're in control of your own actions. And and a lot of time, it's not so much about the actions you're taking, it's what you're doing the in your response to certain things too.
Yeah.
When it comes to, you may be in a disagreement with your wife, and you don't want it to get out of hand, and you're yelling and y'all fussing, like, you don't it's like you gotta choose the battles. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you gotta, like I said, when it comes to expressing yourself, you don't want to get out of character because they think it's okay for daddy to do that. And like, anytime they have a difference in opinion, they gotta scream and be the loudest and be the one that's heard. So you, like I said, you just gotta be watchful of every move you make.
Yeah, I make sure that my sons are seeing me control myself, even when it's not the most convenient thing to do. Right.
Mhm.
Or I let them see me lose the argument, or not necessarily the argument, because we don't do too much, in front of them, but I let them see me lose some battles because they're not all worth winning.
Right.
Right, like, I remember, that, show, that movie White Man Can't Jump, and, Rosie Perez hits him with, "Billy, sometimes when you win, you really lose, and sometimes when you lose, you really win,"
You
right?
win,
When
yeah.
she walks off on him when he got the money finally, and kinda that's how, I believe some of the battles happen between parents and just in the relationships in general is that, man, listen, playing the game in your relationship to win is the easiest way to lose your relationship. No, neither one of the partners should be trying to win over the other partner, right? You should be trying to win as a team. And so sometimes it's just not worth it. And I need
Mhm.
him to see me measuring whether or not things are worth it. I need him to see me making decisions, in the moment that are appropriate for the future health of our relationship and our family, right?
Mhm.
Again, right now, he doesn't know what he's witnessing. He just watches daddy either, respond or not respond, or measure himself or, not measure himself. Like he's taking it all in, but he just doesn't understand exactly what it is. But when he's 10, 12, or when he's reflecting on his childhood, he'll start to discover stuff just in his memories that he didn't really realize in the moment. I do that all the time when I'm thinking about things that I went through as a kid. I'm like, man, damn, like I didn't even realize all of that stuff in the moment, but the memory is there and complete, and you realize that I learned a lot of toxic shit from witnessing toxic shit, and I thought I was
Mhm.
unaffected, and I'm not, right? And so I
Mhm.
want to make sure that all of my actions affect him in a way that it not only set an expectation internally for him, because again, the standards that we grow up, privileged to are the standards that we hold for ourselves for a time. That's why they say, you're a product of your environment. If you come from this place, you'll likely create that same reality for yourself in adulthood if you haven't seen a different reality. For me, I want to make sure that my sons are growing up in a house that provides the type of atmosphere that's healthy and conducive to a life that is, first satiating and also joy and satisfaction inducing. And it just takes me setting an example of creating a peaceful atmosphere. And I feel like I've done that, but I've watched parents before. Um, put a lot of pressure on their kids to be perfect when when that parent is at war with themselves.
Mhm.
I've watched screw up parents somehow or another try to build perfect little people through hellfire and brimstone, through ass whooping, through yelling, through abusing, and I don't know what they expect. Uh, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not
Mhm.
sure what the purpose is, because all you can do to a child with uh, too much discipline and too many rules and structures in place and not enough examples is confuse them,
Yeah.
because a child will do as you do, but they may not do as you say.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things to remember as a parent is that a kid will always do as you do, and they may or may not do as you say. And
Mhm.
so what you do need to be right, need to be ironclad.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's real important to bring them along, have them with you as you're achieving certain things or as that process is ongoing. Even dumb it down to just cleaning your area, uh, helping your wife clean the house, or the areas of the home you're responsible for, and do it with them. As we said before, just being that, setting that example as a leader, as, hey, I'm essentially one of you. I'm a part of this structure. I'm a part of this foundation as much as you are. It takes all of us.
Mhm.
So but like you said, it's when it comes to the expectations, you want to make sure that's kind of in line with your principles and who you are. If
Right.
it's something that you wouldn't do or you feel like you're incapable of doing, don't expect that. I mean, you can say it all you want to, but don't expect that's they're going to be the outcome when it comes to your children. So yeah, as long as you're keeping that in mind and you kind of building that trust by um, by trial as far as them seeing you, okay, the action that they're taking, they're speaking from that as opposed to what they desire. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, just keeping it realistic, man. And I know probably some families or some fathers, go through. It's all circumstantial, and maybe you know the the father might have been locked up, incarcerated, or in and out of prison, and during those times, your child is probably looking to someone else for inspiration and modeling someone else, the mother, grandparent, whoever else is in their lives, and then you trying to that father trying to reestablish himself and his presence into the child's life, and they're no longer looking at that. The child's not no longer looking at that father for the things they needed when they were younger. So, um, that's tough. And all the things that you wish you were there for, you weren't, and now it's you like, hey, you still want to be that type of leader, but obviously you're not credible enough to do that. So,
Right.
uh, but I know those, type of fathers kind of struggle with that.
You know, you bring up you reminded me of something when you was talking. Um, like we got to think about what we want for our kids, right? Like, man, I every day I daydream about the men my sons will become, and I know I have a lot to do with that, but it's very important to me that my sons become productive and prolific and effective and impactful and happy. You know, um, people who are joyful, people who are content, people who are at peace. Right? Like I really want that for them. My idea for success for my sons has more to do with who they are inside than what they accomplish for people to see. The spectacle of success. Right. So it's important to me that my sons see me being happy with the small things that they don't that they see us achieving or they see us acquiring stuff, right? But that stuff isn't ever worshipped in front of them, right? The example that you set also sets their expectation for whatever success is. So in my house, success is doing what you love, success is being happy, success is liking yourself, it's loving yourself. Every day I ask my son, how he feels about himself, and I make sure that he understands that that's more important that than whatever someone else feels about him, right? So I set the example of confidence, right? When I walk like a man. I talk to men like men. I handle business like with my alpha and with my masculinity in place at all times. I don't run from things in front of him. He seen me handle conflict between other men. He understands that I do get to another level. And there is some aggression, but also daddy can walk away from a fight. Daddy doesn't have to be violent. Daddy doesn't have to, hurt anybody to make his point, but
Mhm.
daddy don't back down. You
Right.
understand? And like
Yeah.
these are all of the things that matter to me. Like whether or not my son is a straight A student is just not my concern. And I
Mhm.
understand that is important for a lot of people. And man, congratulations, good for y'all, man. More power to y'all, love and respect to y'all. But that is just not my idea of successful for any age group. I've known a great many valedictorians who are on crack now,
Mm.
right? I know a lot of valedictorians who are alcoholics, who didn't graduate college, who have 8, 9 kids by 8, 9 men. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
I've seen the failed straight A student way too many times to think for myself that might lead to success because I had some good marks or my son has some good marks. if you don't build the person, then the optics rule them, right? And so
Yeah.
the many of the people I know who have an idea of success based on the accomplishment or the accolade uh, aren't in tune with who they are, and they haven't decided who they are, and they haven't decided to love that person. So for me, I need my son to see that not only am I happy with the have-nots, but as we gain more and we have, I'm happy with the simple things, and none of those things are creating me as a person that I've decided every day to be great. And again, these are things that he doesn't understand, and they're not always explicitly explained. It's just something that you witness in a person, and ultimately you grow to understand it in time. But the subconscious training of a child is as important as the conscious and the verbal, the intent and the intended training of a child. And so I just try to be every bit of the man that I would hope my sons to be. And they don't have to be me. They don't have to follow in my footsteps. I just want them to be everything that they are.
Yeah.
And I need that to be the first priority. And so I want my sons to know, reading, math, all of that shit that they talk about in school and that they teach, that's important enough.
Hmm.
But man, I know way too many people who can tell you the square root of some long ass number, but they can't function in life. They're fuck ups, they're failures. They don't like each other, they don't like themselves, they're depressed, they have deep anxiety, they're suicidal. Like I know very successful and unhappy people, and I'm realizing that. And I mean, I've always known that success was your ability to get through life with joy and with contentment and with peace, right? And
Hmm.
so peace is king in my house, and the example I set for my sons is peace. I've created an environment and an air in this house that nourishes peace within us all, and hopefully that's my legacy. If I don't leave them nothing else, I've given them the blueprint to living a life that they can love and enjoy.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't require me to coach or badger them very much. Every day I just give them a nice affirmation, or a thought that they can have for themselves. But it always starts with strengthening yourself. And so my expectation for them is the example that I set, as a man who loves himself and agrees with himself and is always in agreement with his decisions, is to be single minded and to be sure footed. And when they see me doing that, no matter what I tell them to do in the future, no matter what I ask of them, they'll understand that it comes from a place of a meticulous consideration for the result of their lives.
Yeah. That's deep. Yeah. And when it comes to success, obviously success has different meanings. It's ambiguous depending on who you're speaking to. And that's important to know and understand when it comes to learning from your child, because you may have an idea for yourself when it comes to success, but those same things may not apply or may not align with your child's idea of success.
Right.
And you may want some of the same things. I mean, say for instance, you had a great life, a lot of things went your way, very fortunate, and you want those same things for your child, which is fine to for you to think that way. But I think every person is their own person, but
Yeah.
like you said, as long as you set those standards as far as the principles and morals and things that they should have innately about them, um, then that's the biggest thing, because like I said, that's what's going to stay with them no matter what decision they plan on making, what situation they're in. They have to fall back on those principles and uh, those pillars that you set in their life at an early age. So yeah, definitely hats off to that, man, for real.
One of the things that I've always tried to do is give my son positive affirmations, because my expectation for him, beyond anything else, is again for him to be happy and love who he is and do things that he can be proud of. So today's positive affirmation, within that expectation, and it's the example I try to set is, I always tell him, and I actually make him repeat this a couple of times a day. The first part of it is, never compare yourself to others, right? Like I always tell him,
Mhm.
never compare himself to others, because he sees himself being compared to other kids. Teachers have a job of comparing kids, right? That's just what they do in kindergarten. Either he's good or he's bad in this. He needs improvement. He's compared to other kids. He's this or that. And so, because of that, I always make sure I nourish who he thinks he is, and make sure that I set an expectation for him to accept himself, by showing him that we accept ourselves in this household, and reiterating the fact that he's good enough already. So today's positive affirmation in totality was: never compare yourself to others. You are already good enough. All of your problems have solutions. You can do anything you set your mind to. And he's
Yeah.
5, so that's his reading lesson today. Like, my son can read,
Dope.
he's pretty advanced for a 5-year-old as far as his reading. They've run out of words to give him, to feed him in kindergarten. Literally,
Nice.
he's probably through the first grade reading list as well. And so I come up with random things that he might not read in kindergarten for him to do his
Got
reading.
to.
And that
Yeah.
was his reading lesson today. And it's super important that a child first develops an expectation of peace, and an expectation of just self acceptance, right?
Hmm.
I've watched so many people put on their kids the dreams that they had that they didn't accomplish. They wanted to be basketball players. They kid is a C-level athlete at best, but
Hmm.
they got their kid in 15 different AAU leagues, and they got their kid training and practicing all day, every day, just because they like basketball and they want their kid to be great. And it's like, bro,
Just
that's
forcing
your
unrealistic expectations. Yeah.
yeah, unrealistic expectations, and this is your dead dreams. You trying to bring them back to life through your kid, and you don't know what they dream
Vicariously.
about. Right? You trying to live vicariously through your kid. You don't know what they dream about. I've known people who were forced to go to school to be lawyers, go to school to be doctors, because their parents either didn't do it or they came from a third world country. And it's like, oh, well, they expect us to be doctors and lawyers here. So, because we Indians, so that's what we doing. We doctors and lawyers. Like, I've known people who had their own dreams, and the parents just trampled the dream just because it wasn't prestigious enough, because they've always wanted prestige and didn't have it.
Hmm.
I think the most piss poor shitty thing you can do as a parent is place your dreams on the shoulders of your children, because
Yeah.
anything that you do without passion will be a failure, a crash and burn. And even
Hmm.
if you're smart enough, and your children are smart enough to accomplish the thing that you put in front of them to accomplish, outside of their own dreams and passions and motivations, they won't feel happy, or they won't be satiated. It won't give them peace, right? And so they can have the title, and the title's for other people. The title really isn't for them if that's not what
Hmm.
they wanted to do, right? So when we put these expectations on our kids to be, doctors and lawyers, or, whatever the profession that, that you think is prestigious enough that you can say, my kids are, we do them a disservice, because we impress other people with our titles and our badges, and the letters and the prefixes on our badges. But
Hmm.
if our children aren't happy with themselves, what have we shown them? That everyone else's opinion of them matters than their own opinion of themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think that, like I said, the expectations that we place on our children have to be realistic to them. Like, I realize that my son has his own challenges. I have no business placing certain expectations on him, because there are certain gifts that he has naturally, and he has some certain pronounced enough limitations that he ain't gonna be no damn, well, at least I can say, speak for myself. I would never have been no damn mathematician. It just wasn't going to happen, right?
Hmm.
And somebody who was trying to make me be a doctor and lawyer would have been fairly disappointed in my D's and my F's, because I wasn't going to be no damn mathematician. You can throw me in all the doctoral, or, you can throw me in all the algebra and all the, whatever the hell. I don't even know what that math is called. That's how fucking bad I am at math. I can't, but it's just called math. It'd
Right.
be like trigonometry. What's that? The math. But like, I can't even tell you what type of maths it is. All I know is I that's not the shit that I thrive at. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that nobody told me what I was going to be when I grew up. But I know a great many people, and a lot of the clients that I have in life coaching and relationship coaching are also struggling with not having met the expectations of their parents and their families because they're very rigid, and their idea of success has been pushed on them and programmed into them. And I just want my sons to understand that for them, success is living the life that they want. And if they want to be doctors, lawyers, mathematicians, police officers, whatever that is, that the expectation is that they can do anything that they put their mind to
Right.
with some work and with some obsession and with some passion. But again, as long as they see work ethic, obsession, and passion from me, they can apply that to anything they do in life. And so, that's how I manifest the expectations that I put on them, is by trying to show them those qualities in myself. I like to think I've done a good enough job, and it looks like you about to, you on the same road.
Hell yeah. No, I appreciate it. You are, man. I see it. I see it a lot. And like you said, we don't want to overcomplicate the expectations and, you know, give them or have it appear that we're applying too much pressure for these expectations to be met. Um, like you said before, we don't want it unfair, unrealistic, because it's not, obviously uh it's not positive affirmation if we don't know enough about our child and they don't know enough about themselves to know that, hey, this isn't for me. And as a parent, some things you just gotta accept, like, yeah, that's not right. I need to go on back off. Let's try a different direction. Let's, go into something different. Let's try something new. Let's just, instead of the way that you might have been brought up or some things that you thought might have worked, you got to be impromptu. You got to be spontaneous sometimes, and derail from the path that you thought might have worked, and just maybe ask for help. Maybe, go with some other advice. And because I know a lot of us parents, we think we can figure it out all by ourselves. And kind of to go with the whole purpose of this podcast, the Fatherhood Village, is for us to reach out and to make other connections and to find out more about other people's path and what are they doing, what are some things that they had to change, or find answers to, because a lot of us go through the same stuff, like,
Mm.
what I'm saying. It's just a conversation that I feel like is important and we all should have, or and speak of something, some of the differences and struggles and difficulties we're having, because I'm sure a lot of us can get a lot of help and just having that insight, like, you know what, I ain't look at it like that. Oh, my child's the same way. Let me try that out. You know what I'm saying? So we can't be scared or afraid to look in another direction for help and to gain some insight, some knowledge from someone else that might have went through that already.
Yeah.
We can save ourselves a lot of headache, frustration, time.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
list goes on. Um, oh, another one. I mean, it kind of all roots from the same thing, but I think it's natural for people to compare themselves to others, and especially in a group setting,
Mm.
as a classroom. And a lot of people want to do their best, and when their best isn't enough, or you feel like you're singled out because everyone else is hitting on a much higher cylinder, and you're just kind of at the bottom, you're going to naturally feel like, damn, like, I really tried to do that. And your success matters, at least in that aspect. um and that's where, as far as our expectations come, as long as they've given all they could, they asked the right questions, they had the right tools, they were prepared, that's all we can, what I mean, hope for. And
Mhm.
sometimes you don't hit the mark, sometimes, hey, but like I said, it's I think it teaches them more about themselves. Like, if they hit, one, two, three, and four, um but maybe they did it in reverse order, you know what I'm saying? Or like, um, sometimes they take the same thing that they learned from, maybe from playing basketball, or something they learned from science and try to apply it to something else, it may not correlate all those same ways. You know what I'm saying? So they got to understand everything uh, isn't as easy as it seems, and it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know? So
And another part of that is, like to my point earlier, when I was telling my son, never compare yourself to others. And I go through all of these positive affirmations, and the messaging changes day to day, man. But I try to speak so much life into him. And I'm sorry, I try to speak so much life into him and try to feed him so much that I don't, it might not stick to him, but I want it in the subconscious. But with that said, like I say, never compare yourself to others. With that, I have a responsibility to never compare him to others.
yeah, that's
Right.
the
I
big
ha
one.
I have a responsibility as a father to never say, "Well, look at that kid over there. He's doing it." You know, what why couldn't you get a grade like oh Johnny over there? Or
Yeah.
why you crying and they over there having like I can't compare.
Or between the two siblings, like your little brother did it. Why
Right,
can't you do it?
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. I always make sure that like if my messaging is never compare yourself to others, you are great. How you are already good enough, being who you are, then I have to treat him like he's good enough, and I have to understand that while he might be flawed and he can make improvements on that. The only comparison that I give him to analyze is the comparison of him to him, right?
Mhm.
You were better yesterday than you were today. What's the difference between these days, right? What's the
Mhm.
difference in your effort? What's the difference in your focus? What's the difference in your intent? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if I ever compare my son to another kid, I'm doing him a disservice, especially if I'm giving him that messaging that, oh, okay, daddy's more pleased with this kid over here. So either he's inadequate, by comparison, or he's as good as another kid. You can never put your kid in a place to win when they know that the mark is always outside of them, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's our responsibility as fathers in creating an expectation for our children and an expectation for themselves is to also manage our expectations for them and manage the way we communicate our expectations for them, that they don't have to compete with other kids, that it's always them versus them. And
Mhm.
as long as it's always you versus you can win that, right?
Right.
Because you decide that battle. But outside sources and outside comparisons are a very toxic thing for even the adults to manage. And as we see people kill themselves. We see people, go into depression and and do all sorts of things to cope with the disappointment that they feel from not living up to the standards of other people or not living up to the comparison that they've created for themselves against others. And so, you know, that's our responsibility as fathers is to create not only a realistic expectation for our children, but a healthy one,
Yeah.
right? And the only way to do that is to make sure that it doesn't depend on outside sources or outside motivations, but all of the battles that they face should be them versus them.
Right. I agree. I agree. Um, I think that there's probably a line that needs to be drawn when it comes to comparing and idolizing.
Uh,
You know what
Good
I
point.
mean? Um, because a lot of times, this is take basketball for an easy example. A lot of kids try to emulate a lot of things LeBron James does, Kobe Bryant, you name it.
Hmm.
Um, and then they, even though they may fall short of exactly, doing the same things that those athletes might have accomplished, I think as long as us as parents don't compare them, just allow the kid to do so,
Yeah,
I think, we keep ourselves out of the fire a little bit when it
yeah.
comes to that. Yeah.
I think that that's a good point. Allow them to develop their idols as long as they come from healthy sources.
Yeah.
And my job as a father is just to make sure I'm worthy of one of those spots.
Yeah.
Right? My son might like LeBron James or Luka Doncic, whatever the fuck that nigga name is. But
Right.
whoever the next great player is, or even certain actors or something. I would hope to keep them away from idolizing rappers because there are very
Yeah.
few out here that doing something. But whoever his idols are, I would hope that I've done enough and I'm connected enough to him to be one of his idols. And as
Yeah.
long as he's living amongst one of his idols and he's seeing something in 3D, like I said, I'm setting the example for him. uh,
Hmm.
I'll leave a mark on him that can't really be um, erased by anybody else's influence, temporary or otherwise.
Yeah.
Because what you see in real life is what you believe. What you
Hmm.
see on TV is, not as impactful, right? And so you can idolize a person and use your imagination, but the main idol and the most important figure that most kids will have are their parents that they grow up with. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I deal with a lot of clients whose parents didn't understand that. They created unrealistic expectations for them growing up, and then they chastised them and abused them when those unrealistic expectations were not met. And those people struggle throughout adulthood, not feeling adequate, not feeling good enough, not feeling accomplished enough. They can have the title, they can have the degree, they can have the car, the house, the family, the pick a fence, the pick the American symbol of success. They can have it all and still not feel adequate, and
Hmm.
that's learned through toxic parenting. And so it's just our job to make sure that if we don't know, we find out how to you know del- um, how to give the messages and how to relay the messages of inner strength to our children. Because a person who's strong inside can otherwise manifest great things in their life, but a person who's weak inside will struggle even if they attain the accolades of what we think is our success in this country.
Yeah. 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 Because I just know I'm trying to prepare myself because, especially, I mean, it's one thing I think for our sons to emulate a lot of things that we do as men, and how we um, how we move in our space as a man. But having a daughter, obviously, a lot of what I do, she may not want to do the same things, and just with the gender opposite is different. So I can't expect her to really be so much like myself, even though there are going to be a lot of characteristics that are similar. I know she's going to idolize, other women. At least
Yeah,
that's what I'm preparing for, So, and that's something that, you know, my wife can probably speak to as far as how she wants to handle that situation, and or how she feels about maybe not idolizing her mother so much because she may have other aspirations in life that her mother just hasn't gone in that same direction, So, but
hmm,
I just think, as far as her being a woman, or later in life, and being brought up as a young lady, I just think what she learned from me as a father, as a man, helps her deciding who she wants in her life. And just being that positive light, having that structure, and for her to not tolerate bullshit, you know what I'm saying, just
absolutely.
because she likes someone. It's going to take more than just liking somebody for her to really, allow them into her life. Um, so that's kind of where I was getting at for others with daughters and things like that. She may not be a businesswoman, she may not be an entrepreneur, but I want her to know that if times got hard, like this kind of recession that we're in right now, she's able to take some of the things she learned from daddy, and how I was able to, as you said, not only hustle but build and
Right.
structure things to where I'm going to get paid regardless if I'm hired or not. As far as having an employer, I employ myself.
Yeah,
I find ways, I find problems that I can solve and fix, and sell that to someone else, that's in
absolutely.
need of it. So long as she, like we talked about before, identifies with these principles that we set, that she'll always, like, she can always rely on, no matter what age she is, and no matter what stage in life that she's at, she can always apply those same things and get the result that she wants.
With daughters, and I don't have any daughters, but you do. But I've obviously every woman I ever dated was a daughter to somebody.
Right.
What I've noticed is the women I've ever dated that had fathers more structured, as great in comparison to a person like yourself. It doesn't just help them. I think that our common comparison and our common references, well, if she had a great father, then she'll date better men, and that's absolutely true from what I've observed in dealing with women and coaching women through relationships. They expect more from men when they've witnessed more from men, in their fathers. But also, the women who have had strong masculine fathers who were great leaders outside of dating conduct themselves a lot better on average. And maybe not better is not the right word. Maybe there's just more strength and more resilience and more
Yeah.
more power and authority in everything they do. And it's not a
Mm.
masculinity that I'm referring to. It's just the capability is so much greater
Yeah.
in women who had strong fathers because they witnessed that resiliency. Because a man who's taking care of his family is sometimes going up against all odds. And when they witness a man overcoming everything to make sure that his family's straight and then coming home and still being emotionally connected to mom and still being nurturing to them and still being sweet and still being loving, but also being everything a man is, right? Those women have an expectation for life that is very, very different from people who come from broken homes or women who come from lesser men. So
Hmm.
I've always witnessed more strength, more resiliency, more self respect, more tenaciousness around the things that matter, around the ideas that create a strong a strong experience in life. When women have great fathers who understand all of the responsibilities of fatherhood, not just the providing, the coming with the money and that's it thing.
Yeah.
The expectation that they have for themselves is to be as stable as the man that they witnessed at home, right?
Hmm.
And the masculine energy around the divine masculine and the divine feminine balance each other out. So when witnessing masculinity, it pulls into balance the feminine energy that a woman might have. And we see women
Yeah.
all the time, like we call it daddy issues. That's the slang terminology for it. Oh, she got daddy issues. You see a woman twerking for no reason at all on Instagram, and the thirst trapping and just being, you know, uh, different. Right? Undesirable in the eyes of a father, right? We like,
Right.
she got daddy issues. She got daddy issues. But
Yeah.
that imbalance that you see is her compensating for many of the insecurities that happen when she has either an unfit father or no father at all.
Hmm.
Right. When your value is placed in you by the community of men instead of by a real man, right? The
Right.
community of males, not men, but males. Then yeah, twerking builds value for you. Twerking, it seems like value for you, but when you
Hmm.
knew a real man and you expect real men to be like to stand up on their principles, you're not looking to get validated by a bunch of males, right?
Yeah.
A sack of balls isn't enough to be valid, to be seen as valid, And
Exactly.
so, like I said, women who come from men like yourself, um, I've always known them to be much stronger. Even the clients that I have that speak of their fathers with a certain type of reverence are my more stable clients. They're more calculated. They're more sure-footed. They're more successful. They're more confident just because they've learned how to um, how to navigate their relationship with men and their relationship with other people in a different way than sometimes women who come from single parent households where the mom is trying to give them the structure of both parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, we touched on a lot, man. I think we did a good job with this topic, leading by example. It goes a long way, like you said, with having sons, having daughters. it's a lot you have to keep in mind. And like I said, with having it's that dichotomy because obviously I'm there's different things that I have to introduce and explain between the two that they're gonna digest a little differently. So I have to be mindful of that. And she's older and she's advanced too. Like she's we're getting her on a reading phase, and it's starting to come along a little bit. Right now we're just making sure she because I don't want to get into it, but the English language is so jacked up and is contradiction so much. So trying
Yeah.
to teach her the different sounds of the letters and things, and then when you bring certain letters together, it changes everything we just taught her on a fundamental level. Um, but anyways, it's things that I have to teach her and show her that she's gonna understand differently than my son, and obviously it's gonna be that same way as she gets older. And but like you said, man, you hit the nail right on the head. She has to know how a man thinks and a man's true desire, like a real man, that's
Mhm.
mature, um, and that she wants later in her life. So, and she's obviously going to get her first impressions of that through me,
Right.
So, um, as long as I'm staying sharp and doing all I can and being the responsible and understanding parent, I think the success rate is going to be pretty high as far as um how I believe she'll fare out in life. So but yeah, man, just parents out there, fathers, you got to look at yourself. You got to make sure that that example that you're setting is that is feasible, that's fair, and don't lie. If you know that's your child is incapable, or you not good at that, you can't teach the game that you don't know.
Right.
Don't expect things that that are unobtainable. And I think it's important to let your kid uh fail. If they want to really go and try, they want to go out there and do it, let them go.
Yeah.
Don't hold them back. Say, I don't think you're that good at it. Or if they believe in themselves, do not, cast any shadow of doubt. Don't display that. You know what I mean? Let them go be great.
I want to make one more point before we get out of here too. You know, my son, oftentimes they don't have a bus right waiting for him. Uh, think they'll call me and say, "Oh, we don't have a bus for him this morning, public transportation, right?" So the school bus might not come. The bus driver might call off or something. And the last expectation I want to talk about is the expectation that your child should have for you, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I just want to make this small point. Those days that I have to take my son to school and go into work late because the bus isn't coming because the bus driver called off.
Mm,
I have to walk him up to the door because he's 5, right? I have to walk him
mm,
up to the door, and they line all the kids up in a single file line. But there's no teacher outside. They just know what to do because the school's pretty structured. The kids are pretty well behaved at the school. It's pretty impressive.
mm.
But the last time I walked him up to school, man, and he always looks back at me every few steps. And it's like I don't even know what that's about for him, but every time he looks back, I make sure he sees me standing there looking back at him.
Yeah. There
And
you go.
every single time he'll take about 3 or 4 steps. He walks about 3 yards, and he'll look back, or he walks about 2 yards, and then he'll look back to make sure I'm still there. And he does that, and he'll do that for like 100 feet.
Nice.
Yeah, like he would do that until he's it's so far down the hallway inside of the school that he can't see me through the glass. And
Good.
I stand in place because I want to set an expectation for him that no matter what he's doing and no matter where he is and what he has going on,
You're not going anywhere.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be I'm not going anywhere. I'm always gonna be there. I always got his back. I'm never going anywhere. I'm always gonna be there when he turns around. No
There you
matter
go.
what, I'm always gonna be there when he turns around. That's subconscious,
That
right?
does a lot, man. That does a
Yeah,
lot.
he turns around every time, and he does it maybe every 3 feet, but he needs to see me there, and
Mhm.
so I want to make sure I'm always there. And so, just like I said, the last expectation that I wanted to touch on is the expectations that our kids for have should have for us. Your kids should always be able to expect you to be there for them. And while it might not have the same symbolism as what I just discussed, if your kids can't expect your support, then you have done them a great disservice. Again,
Mhm.
your money and your possessions and your child support or whatever the hell thing you think you're providing for your sons and daughters is nothing if they can't expect you to be there for them when they need it, or when they're afraid, or when they're nervous, or when they're cautious, or when they're uneasy about something. They need to know that you are there, and that's the expectation that they should have for us, and that's the expectation that we should have for ourselves as fathers. And that's as important as any expectation we place on their shoulders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always. Because once we fail them, we fail ourselves as fathers, you know.
Hmm.
And like you said, we that last line of defense where their foundation, where their everything, when everything's falling apart on their end, they need us and we have to be there.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. But yeah, man, we're wrapping it up. For those that enjoyed the show, appreciate the support. Please continue to share, like, and bring these conversations up, man. Bring these topics up with your circle, those that you are in the house with, that you hang out with, all that good stuff, man. I'm trying to continue to push this message forward. So again, if you haven't got with us on IG, we're at the Fatherhood Village. And if you're on Twitter, find us at the Fatherhood News. Once again, man, it's a pleasure doing this show with you, Kev. Um,
They
like
did
I
all,
said,
brother.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're going to keep it coming, man. But yo, as always, stay Holloway. That's Kev Hick. Peace and love.
Peace and love.